Welcome to part 11 of Rishi the Movie. Let's move straight back to Patton West's statements while being deposed in October 2009. Big page 9, little page 30, top left. Are you also willing to provide us with transaction history for that account? Sure, she says. Notice how she agrees to everything. Yeah, you can have this, you can have that. There's no money in it, blah, 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 blah. Patton West is asked if she is signatory to any other bank accounts, including corporations. She says at one point in time, I had a personal non-profit account with the Flathead Bank. Did you say non-profit? Yes, the Devra Patton West Foundation. When did that close? It is not closed. Correct. I'm guessing there's, $60 in it or something like that. I don't know. The only foundation non-profit I knew of was the Circle of Divine Unity. That was the non-profit that she and Jack West had bank accounts off of. But the checkbooks never mentioned the charity's name. It was either Jack West in one book or Devra West in another. However, I understand those accounts might have been shut down when a charity was struck off in January 2004. Or she could have had another bank account in the same account, but the same bank where the charity's accounts were, and move money across into the Devra West Foundation account. That's money laundering, isn't it? Now, at the bottom of little page 30, notice she's saying, yeah, it's no problem at all. I don't mind. You can waste your time if you want, but I don't know if he cares or not. He being Mr. Bartlett, her lawyer. And from what I can make out, Mr. Bartlett kind of shuts that down. Top right, little page 32. Patton West is asked about other accounts over the last 5 years, and once again she refers to Mr. Reynolds. In other words, she's pretending she doesn't know what the hell's going on and saying that Mr. Reynolds told her that the bank had closed them for outstanding bank fees or something like that. Bottom of the same page, lawyer asks about filed petition for dissolution 2 years ago. She says, well, again, Mr. Reynolds and I'm not really particularly interested in the financial business end of things. Oh, that's a gigantic lie. I'm a meditation teacher, author. Yeah, she doesn't admit to being a career criminal. That's not going to happen. Anyway, traditionally, I've always had other people handle all of that for me. I've never managed my own checking account. Again, either pretending to be an idiot that doesn't understand all of these things, or letting everybody know that as a self-appointed planetary regent, she's above all of this stuff. Let the peasants deal with that. Similarly, little page 33, bottom right, I've never filled out my, income tax forms and so on. It's just not where I've ever participated. And so I apologize if I'm a little vague on things. And so I apologize if I'm a little vague about things. But I have a general sense of things, but I've never managed anything operationally, not even my own personal finances. Lies, lies, lies. Bottom of page 33, little page 33. Again, I don't know all, I don't know, I just knew, I'm sorry. If they did, Mr. Reynolds would have done it, so he would know. Moving on, big page 10, starting top left, little page 34. More confusion, more obfuscation from Patton West, basically a repeat of previous answers she'd given to another question, just the names are slightly different. Then we get down to the bottom of little page 34, and the lawyer starts questioning her about her divorce from Jack West and whether it went to trial or not. She responds at the top of big page 35, oh, he didn't care, we've been separated for 12 years already. There were no assets to be divided. I'm sure there were lots of assets in Patton West's name, but she was not going to divide them. And Jack was never going to make a big deal about it because he understood and warned me that those who opposed his wife had a habit of dying suddenly. Further down, lawyer says, did you have a marital property settlement agreement? No, there weren't any assets to. There were no assets. Did you receive any sort of maintenance, or what used to be called alimony? Heck no, sure don't. Patton West says there were no assets. Then how does she account for the $4 million worth of artwork and valuables that was owned by the charity disappearing in 2004, valued then at $4 million? So it then reappears, all of it, even matching the list I created while I was there as a business manager, the items even matching those on the list. They turned up for sale, for auction, and part of the Rishi collection. There were lots of assets, probably offshore accounts, precious metals. We know lots of jewellery, but again, Jack was never going to make a fuss about it. On the screen now is an image, and it shows a lot of artwork, reliquary, valuables. I can see why there might be $4 million value in 2002. I understand there's a photo of Reynolds on the right at the auction of stolen property from the charity. Property that Patton West said didn't exist when she went into court, the subject of a sheriff's sale in 2008. Assets, she said, didn't exist to Jack West, which of course he knew they did exist. Anyway, that's a moot point. And then we have this peculiar thing where Patton West is in court on July 12th saying she's a billionaire. She's, deposed by my lawyer in October 2009. She's she's living in a caravan in the back of Reynolds' house. She has no money and she's millions in debt. And then as soon as she gets down to Arizona in 210, she's living in a mansion, thousands of dollars a month in rent, and suddenly all of this artwork appears out of nowhere. Are you paying attention, FBI? I mean, and as far as RICO goes, I still maintain that Patton West qualifies under 8 of the qualifying crimes. And finally, up on the screen, one student, Elaine, has a conversation with Patton West where she explains she doesn't need bank accounts because she has her assets elsewhere and she's wearing $250,000 in emeralds, whatever. And then moving on to the next student, this is Judy Morris, yes, and she talks about European students being encouraged to mortgage their homes, to give money to Devra Patton West, and the more they give, the closer to God they'll be. Now, I ask you again, is this a guru or a career criminal? Or are you still on the fence? If so, don't worry, we're going to do another 9 episodes after this one, And the purpose of that is to lay it all out for the FBI, the police, the state governments, and for anybody wishing to launch a class action lawsuit against Patton West and her accomplices, who were all well aware of what was going on. Coffin, a 30-year student, Williams, 20 plus years. Jack West, most of his adult life, let's say 40 years, and Reynolds, 8 years, but during that 8 years, he put forward an Oscar performance. So they all deserve the credit they're going to get for keeping this lunatic in business. Okay, let's get back to big page 10, a little page top right. I believe it is 36, little page 36. Lawyer asks, were any of your businesses a sponsor? This is for Patton West going off around the world and posturing from time to time. She says, top right, page 36, small, no, the non-profit participated in it but did not sponsor it. Actually, the opposite is the truth. Patton West wants to give the impression that she's on the lecture circuit and that she generates an enormous amount of income, which she then uses for her own lifestyle costs. That includes jetting around the world, posturing and pretending to be a world server. In reality, it was the non-profits that funded everything, her lifestyle costs, her luxurious lifestyle costs, dry cleaning costs, everything was funded by the charity. Patton West was the charity. She goes on, there are so many peace promise marches and all this, some of which had no real but much organisation to it whatsoever. So when you say participated, she says invited to attend, like she's an important world server, blah, blah, blah. It's all bullshit. So no funds were given to, pardon? They didn't provide funds. Who is they? You said the non-profit participated. Did the non-profit provide funds? Again, you could tell she's lying because she can't get the words out. You said the non-profit participated. Did the non-profit provide funds? For these, separated out. The Peace Promise Initiative had, to my knowledge, 3 expos, seminar, symposium type things, but then it was also, I as a spokesperson was oftentimes invited to attend. Again, it's all bullshit. She set up I set up the Peace Promise non-profit corporation as part of the work that I was asked to do. Every step of the way during the 6 months I was on board as a consultant, Patton West set out her vision and I basically wrote it down and ended up publishing it as her vision. It was only long after that time that I realized that the 6 months and the project I was working on for Nakashala, and up on the screen now, you can see all the non-profits, or most of them, that I created under Millennium Mind. All of that was her vision. But I realized later that it wasn't meant to go anywhere. It was just to occupy my time on the treadmill for 6 months. During that time, she hoped to break me and brainwash and condition me like Williams, like Coffin, like Cole, and all the others that she takes control of and then extracts all their wealth and their life force from. But I don't need to persuade anyone that this woman is a pathological liar. There's a mountain of evidence to prove that. But why don't we go straight to a statement she made to me in March 2003, which was that yes, she had agreed to all of the work that I had done. And if she was in a court of law, she would say, yes, I was telling the truth, which of course she wouldn't do and didn't do, because as soon as it was all published, she puts up statements of denial. But here we are, 2009, October, which is 6 years on from March 2003, where she admitted defrauding me and said that she didn't see herself writing out a check for $50,000 for what she owed me. The woman is a career criminal.
I remember having a conversation with you in your lounge of the lodge where we're talking about pay. And you said that you had a greater need for it at the moment initially, and I said that's not an issue, it's not a problem, and you said you felt that I was going to be having a salary of between $50,000 and $60,000 a year. That was discussed. It wasn't my imagination. Yeah.
If I was standing on a court of law, I would say yes.
Yeah.
That was discussed.
Okay. The other thing that was discussed freely amongst the three of us was a shareholding, and that came into fruition in the form of a draft contract, which exists.
Yes, we know that was all discussed.
So we don't have to argue about this. We can get a third party to look at it from a distance to see whether these things were discussed, whether they exist or not.
They were discussed.
Yeah.
I agree. They were discussed. So do you want to
There is circumstance. I want payment for the 5 or 6 months' time I put into your organization. That is all.
I'm probably not going to be allowed to do that. I'm just letting you know that it's probably not likely that I'm going to fill out a check for $50,000 and just hand it to you.
Before moving back to her statements while being deposed by my lawyer in October 2009, I want to state something very clearly which may not have occurred yet to viewers, listeners of this material. And that is, in my own case, I joined a meditation group run by Jack West. I got recruited as a consultant for 6 months. I later understood that that job was not meaningful. It wasn't, the work that I did was never meant to come to fruition. It was just a track for me to run on for 6 months while she tried to brainwash and condition me into becoming one of her droids. I didn't. I went public. Now, initially, this was about $50,000 that I was owed, plus the shares in Millennia Mind, which she ran with once she dismissed me, constructively dismissed me, and which my other partner, Corin Coffin, put in about $750,000. So that was a gigantic fraud. But now it gets really dark in that I was threatened if I continued to proceed with telling the truth about her, I would be murdered. Jack West made that very clear to me in 2002 before I went public. Reynolds announced my murder in 2007, August, because I continued to tell the truth publicly. So this woman defrauds me, admits she defrauds me, doesn't see herself writing out a check for $50,000, and 23 years later, I have been the subject of massive defamation, 2 murder attempts at least, and a campaign of terrorism that's lasted for 19 years and is ongoing. Now, I'm one victim. She's been doing this since 1991. There are a lot of suspicious deaths around her, and people like Hendrickson, Kershaw, and Cantwell all defrauded. Cantwell, more extortion. She was kidnapped, held prisoner, and beaten. They didn't go after her legally because they knew they would be subject to a campaign of occult violence, aka terrorism, and perhaps murdered. Let's get back to her statements. Everything is funded by charitable donations, which are asked for based on the crap on our website. It's a massive fraud. All this money is going in and it's funding her lifestyle. She wants us all to believe that the money going into these non-profits isn't used by her. Then where did it all go? Here's the reality from students and employees on the ground.
Oh yeah, I used my car extensively. I wrote my own personal checks because there was never any checks. Cheryl O'Brien would say, "Oh, I'm leaving, I'll leave you a check. Just write one of your checks." I had checks bounce because their checks to me would not be good. Therefore, it cost my account
Money.
money. Yeah, I'm going after that also. My bank fees
Okay.
and the use of my car.
They wouldn't give you mileage or reimburse for gas.
They never reimbursed my gas. They refused to pay my gas and my mileage.
They asked you to go up to Shambhala.
Yeah, I went up to Shambhala on my own day off.
Okay.
Did not pay my time, did not pay my mileage.
And she wanted you to go and live up there, apparently,
Yes.
with her?
Yes, she stated in front of the real estate agent and Esther Michaels that she would pay for my moving expenses for me to live there and give me a substantial raise to move up.
What about your children?
My feeling was that she did not want me to bring my children.
So
What'd you say?
you'd effectively leave your children somewhere.
Right. I had to make up my mind on what I was going to do about my children, is what she told me.
Wow.
Yeah. So she's a very odd and sick woman.
Did you always get paid on time?
Always got paid on time. Whether the checks were good were a whole nother issue. The funds were not always available in the account, and it's gotten worse.
All right. Whilst funds were not available to you and maybe other employees, I know from my time there that people had to wait 2 or 3 weeks in some cases. What about Devra West's lifestyle in the house?
Oh, she lived very extravagantly. Yeah, she ate only gourmet food, expensive food, which had to be hand selected. An extensive amount of wine, which she consumed 1 to 2 bottles a day on a daily basis, every day.
And is your experience of this that this was all paid by the charity?
Yes.
Yeah.
She stated many times that this is the way the masters wanted her to live,
Okay.
and that she deserved to live amongst beautiful things.
Okay. So you were the house manager that was trying to coordinate the house all the time and keep
Yes.
her in the fashion she'd become accustomed to.
Yes. My job was to keep Devra happy. If Devra wasn't happy, nobody was happy. Oh yeah, she earned money while she was in Israel. That's something else she freaked out about in Boulder too, was that she made a phone call, which we all had to sit and listen to Devra yell at, all of us, except for myself. But I did I had to sit and listen to the conversation, that Devra was upset that the monies collected from this event that they had in Boulder were distributed to some of the people that hosted and had outstanding bills. Rental space, communication, advertising. She was very upset that they had been paid.
But wouldn't it seem appropriate to pay them?
Right.
But she wanted the money out of the country for herself, and they could all go screw themselves.
Basically, they would have been told the check's in the mail.
Now let's have a look at some of the crap put up on our website. All allowed under religious freedom laws. Basically, this lunatic can say exactly what she wants, like she's holding open the gates of time and that the Christ gave her 2 doctorates in person. Here's some of the bullshit that I've downloaded from a most recent site, a copy of which I have. There is zero evidence over 35 years that Patton West has engaged in any world service at all. There is zero evidence, apart from the lies put up on her website, that she's donated to good causes. This is all about raising money for her. The world is in service to her. This is how Satanists view reality. Everything is backwards. So spiritual seekers read this bullshit, and then because they have no discernment or they can't read auras, they get sucked into the lies, and before they know it, they're in a prison they can't escape from. And they either get injured, defamed, murdered if they try to tell the truth, or they just walk away empty-handed like Hendrickson did after being defrauded out of 200k. Dave Kershaw defrauded out of 30,000, and Marion Cantwell, the subject of extortion of part of the sale proceeds of her house by Patton West, who kidnapped her, allegedly beat her, held her captive, and only released her after she made a donation, in quotes. This is what Patton West means by world service. Service by the world for her. On the screen now are some more propaganda pieces from Patton West, presumably all allowed under religious freedom laws, although it's got nothing to do with religion. And there's a clear record of racketeering over 34 years. There's a clear record of thousands of acts of terrorism against hundreds of victims, scores or hundreds of victims, who knows? And then there's the 5 to 7 murders that we think Patton West is responsible for. Now, the first piece up, ratio of donations to program costs, setting the financial record straight. It's all lies. She has somebody produce these images, these graphs, and they have no bearing to reality. It's all fake, all lies, all fraud. There is zero evidence that Patton West has made any donations to good causes. There is zero evidence that Patton West was funding her own lifestyle costs out of her so-called lecture circuit appearances. That's all lies, it's all fake. As you can hear or have heard from Kathleen Francisco, who was a housekeeper for a number of years, the charity funded everything. And when the charity was sucked dry of money, she then started to bully her students and employees into fundraising. And then there were the big schemes, like the one I was involved with for 6 months, which turned out to be just an illusion, really, just to keep me on board, to see if she could take all my wealth away from me. Lies. It's all lies. Moving on to the next propaganda piece, this chart shows the entirety of revenues generated for SAIDU came directly from Dr. West's teaching activities. Again, there were no teaching activities other than the twice yearly SAI gatherings, one of which always occurred in Victor and the other somewhere else, like in Europe or Montreal. Those were her teaching moments. There is zero evidence of her bringing money in, but there's a massive amount of evidence to show that she was basically emptying the charity of every penny it had, and then when there was nothing left, she used employees to fund her lifestyle, as Kathleen Francisco just explained. In the last or the penultimate paragraph, at no time did the non-profit generate income from self-generated projects, programs or enterprises, or in any way engage operation of the Montreal Retreat Centre to achieve fiscal solvency. To expect Dr. West's teaching proceeds to finance the entirety of the non-profit project was a short-sighted and implausible. Patton West's teachings were crap, made up out of her head and based on basically acquiring, procuring culture from India and other places that she referred to as her lineage. In other words, it was a gigantic fraud scheme. Last paragraph, Dr. West gave over 80% of her income and prolific earning ability directly to the non-profit. None of this is true. And there's no evidence to show that any money generated by her personally went into the non-profit or any of the other front companies she was using for organized crime. The money came in from donations based on her lies and propaganda on her big websites. The money came in from her extorting victims of cancer by promising them cures which she could not deliver. Money came from her meeting wealthy people at her private sessions and audiences and having identifying who they were, then making them ill and then offering them a cure for a lot of money, like the 500K she suddenly got in 2002. The charity saw none of that. So no income from Patton West funded the charities at all. And any income she did earn off the books, like from extorting money from people who were ill, just went into her offshore bank accounts or was converted into jewels, precious metals, or a prolific amount of artwork and valuables, which she seems to have a lot of. Take the image on the screen at the moment, the call for philanthropy and global guardianship. This is a piece that she just creates herself. She goes online and gets photographs online, puts it all together, and then basically says, this is her, this is what she's doing. When in reality, as Roger Hill pointed out, she gets $1 million a year in from public donations based on fraud. It's all fraud. None of it goes to any of the good causes that she espouses. And if that were the case, then why, when the IRS were coming, would she need to shred all the documents? Again, this is not a guru. This is a career criminal masquerading as a guru because she's found a way of running a criminal business where she sits there in her mansion wearing her king-size bedsheet with yards of curtain material thrown over her shoulder, imitating an Indian-style guru, and having all the victims come to her. She doesn't have to go out looking for victims on her bike every evening to see whose garden looks like it's worth robbing. No, they all come to her.
Yep.
And you said something about shredding documents and files.
Yeah, they've recently purchased the shredder and
They're going through. They're preparing to leave. That's it. Makes sense. Mm-hmm. That's why they're trying to get all this money too for Shambhala, and they keep keep this
the illusion
going.
Ain't gonna happen.
Yeah.
yeah, and my thought was when they fired me the way they did was I was the strongest and the loudest, and it would be easier to get rid of me quickly and painlessly.
Yeah, and Devra dictated a letter, even part of it to me. How stupid is that? About Kathleen, that Cheryl was to type up that Kathleen was being let go because they're going to do some remodeling on the lodge, and Devra's going to move up to Flathead Lake. So there would be no reason to have Kathleen here. And that was her story, and she was sticking to it.
Why was she sending this letter, though?
That was to protect herself why she fired you.
Oh.
Oh, so it's one of these letters that she does regularly, which are inserted into reality to puff up her folder, to make it look as though she's behaved reasonably.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's her cover
That's
story.
not going to work.
So.
And it's BS because they aren't remodeling the lodge.
No, they never do.
Now, Coffin, Williams, Reynolds, and especially Jack West knew exactly what was going on. How could they not know? Coffin, 30 years on board, Williams, 20 years on board, Jack West forever, Reynolds for 8 years, but he excelled himself. He took to crime like a duck to water. So, they all knew what was going on. And when someone like myself opposed Patton West by telling the truth, then Patton West got her 2 stormtroopers in the shape of Williams and Reynolds to do her bidding. In Williams' case, in January 2007, he sent me a threatening email laden with expletives, basically in a vain attempt to intimidate me into dropping my lawsuit against his cult leader, crime boss. And when that didn't work, in July of the same year, 2007, I apologize, August of the same year, 2007, Reynolds announces my murder and a campaign of terrorism launched at my wife and children. Does any of this sound like a guru, a world server, or does it sound like a criminal gang run by basically a whack job? That's a technical term for somebody who's criminally insane. Again, I would remind her senior members of her cult that there are no statute of limitations on terrorism or the funding of it, Williams and Coffin in particular. Okay, big page 11, little page top left 38. Patton West continues to put out this BS about her being on the lecture circuit and a world traveller. And down the bottom of little page 38, I'm no longer on the lecture circuit as I had been before, going to 4 or 5 countries a month. No, I'm not on the lecture circuit any longer. Little page 39, lawyer says, when were you last on the lecture circuit? Oh, I'm guessing 7 or 8 years ago. As I said, Mr. Watson was very diligently destroyed my reputation as a meditation teacher. If telling the truth about Patton West's crimes is a sin, then I admit to that sin. I expose this criminal, this vicious, spiteful psychopath for what she is, a career criminal, a murderer, a terrorist. So guilty as charged there. As for the travelling and the delusional thoughts about her being a lecturer on the circuit and going abroad several times a year or a month or whatever she said, again, the woman's a pathological liar. She's criminally insane. Here, look at these up on the screen now. These are titles and accolades and names she gave herself after she was run out of Montana in 2010. When she arrived in Arizona, she suddenly started using these titles and accolades. It's all fantasy. The woman is criminally insane and a clear and present danger to the public. This is what ruined her reputation. Me publicizing these crimes, and this is the tip of the iceberg. So there is a clear pattern of behavior, of wrongdoing, of criminal acts for the last 3+ decades in New Mexico, Montana, and more lately Arizona. Of course, I'm going through the statement she made when she was being deposed in October 2009, where she's spewing out all of these lies. The problem with liars is they can't remember all of their lies. And here we are in 2026. Looking back, we can clearly see what those lies were about. Patton West is criminally insane. She's not been on the lecture circuit. She's a grifter. She's a grifter. And the evidence proves that. And recently, B. Schofield, a good reporter, a proper journalist who's been published in the New York Times, did an article on her. And that is going up on the screen shortly. And I invite you to read what is said there. How many awful crimes were committed against individuals in the name of enlightenment, that's what she'd say. But basically, she was putting them all through the mincer, finding their weak points. And in the case of Lolita Jordan, learned that her mother had a trust fund that was paying for her care home fees every month. And so she did put a demonic entity into Lolita so she could take control of Lita, which is exactly what happened. According to witnesses, once Lita became a brainwashed and conditioned droid like Williams and Jack West and Coffin and many, many others, she extracted the passwords from Lolita and then emptied Lolita's mother's trust fund into her own bank account. I mean, there are so many crimes, and I would say there are 20, 30 or 40 crimes in that one article that B. Schofield did. And these crimes are what these idiots, I'm talking about Jack West, I'm talking about Williams, I'm talking about Reynolds, and Coffin just keeps funding, she just keeps handing over money. But what she doesn't realize is that Patton West is not a guru. She's a criminal masquerading as a guru. She's a terrorist. And when all this evidence is brought to light in a RICO-style criminal court, Coffin and the rest will be going down for funding her, lying about her, marketing her to the public in the hope of gaining more victims. In Reynolds' case, announcing my murder and a campaign of terrorism, which is ongoing 19 years later. Jack West warned me I'd be murdered if I went public. And then again, there's Williams sending me emails in writing, threatening me to pull out of a court case against his guru, his cult leader, his crime boss, the gang leader. Big page 11, little page, bottom left, page 39. Are you receiving income from any sources? She answers, none whatsoever. Do you receive anything from the sale of books, CDs, DVDs? No. But you have items available on your website. You used to have books available, correct? Right, but they never got it together to price the books or do PayPal or anything, so nobody could buy them. No, the website, we never had the money to develop the website to receive money. And yet, as soon as she left Montana, shortly after giving this statement, she seemed to get her act together. On the screen now is one version of a pay portal that was on her website before it was taken down. Note that it is set up to receive a single contribution of $500,000 plus. Anybody having anything to do with this idiot should do their research. If they did, they find out it was a criminal and that her pay portal was the way she received donations, in quotes, from people she extorted money from. More lies. It's just like when asked about her wealth in 2007 in court. She's a billionaire because it suits what she's doing to pretend to be a billionaire. At the very time she made that statement, she was close to bankruptcy, and there was a lien against her for unpaid employment insurance. Now we get to the time when she's deposed by my lawyer in October 2009. Suddenly she's a bankrupt again. It's all lies. There's a pattern to all of this bullshit. And you have a book listed on Amazon, correct? Correct. No sales whatsoever when your representation has been destroyed. It's pretty difficult to continue to present yourself as legitimate. But Patton West was not legitimate. A legitimate career criminal masquerading as a guru. Yes, that's the truth. But she thinks I've destroyed her reputation, not her actions, her many visits to court as a defendant in mainly fraud-related lawsuits, many claims of cruelty and violence by her students and employees. She thinks that's all my doing. But let's keep peeling back all the lies. Page 40, top right. So it boils down to Mr. Watson and perhaps yourself finally realising that if you kill the milk cow, you cannot milk it. A lot to unpack from her lies. I would remind the listener, the viewer, that immediately after she left this deposition, immediately after she gave all these false statements to my lawyer, she moved down to Arizona and moved into a mansion that cost allegedly $3,000 or more a month, which eventually she'd be evicted from because she couldn't keep the rental payments up. Maybe she is the mother of 10,000 sons and producing massive amounts of wealth days after pleading that she's close to bankruptcy and owing $2 million. Maybe that's possible for somebody like Patton West. On the other hand, it could just be another big frigging lie. The comment, so it boils down to Mr. Watson and perhaps yourself finally realising that if you kill the milk cow, you cannot milk it. The whole purpose of this deposition, or at least Patton West's purpose, is to make it clear to my lawyer and me that it's a waste of time going after her because she doesn't have any money to pay out. What she doesn't realise with myself, for instance, is I'm not that interested in the money. I want justice, not just for myself, but the scores and hundreds of victims. So if I don't get a penny, but I plough Patton West under, which is to send her to a RICO trial, have all of her crimes publicised, then see her go to jail along with Williams, Reynolds, Coffin and Jack West, I'll be perfectly happy. So all these lies about being poor, understanding that in 2007 you said you were a billionaire, in 2009 you're saying nothing. In other words, Mr. Watson and his lawyer, stop badgering me because there's no money to give you even if you get a victory. Well, let's make it clear. Money or no money, this bitch and her accomplices are going to jail. Little page 40, top right. Are you still in contact with Corinne Coffin? No, another lie. When is the last time you had contact with her? She attended a meditation retreat in, I'm guessing, 2002, 2003. After Mr. Watson threatened her excessively, she broke all ties with me. It's a complete pack of lies, What actually happened was that in 2002, around May, June time, Patton West paraded myself, Corinne Coffin, out front of the entire cult and said that we were the partners in Millennium Mind and we were going to make all of this work and it would be fantastic. Give generously. After Patton West constructively dismissed me, after it was obvious I wasn't going to go along with her crimes, like Reynolds, Williams and all the others, she got rid of me. And then as her long-term private secretary, Barbara Costantino, says, she lies about the reasons why people depart. Barbara goes on to say that I was held in good standing. And here's a picture on the line now of a birthday present I got from Patton West on July 12th, 2002. When I was constructively dismissed, I tried to contact Corinne, who told me during this, parading of us out in front of the entire cult, that she was glad I was on board because she did not trust Patton West to use the $1 million seed funding she was about to give to do what was agreed with that money. In other words, to build Millennium Mind. And Corinne Coffin had justifiable fears about this because not long before we paraded in front of everybody, Patton West received an $80,000 donation from Miss Coffin, which she took out of the charity and used to pay her son's legal fees, his ex-wife and the mother of his first daughter. To put an underlined period, full stop on this matter, on the screen now is an image showing that Corinne Coffin was until 2021 her treasurer, a treasurer, an officer of the company, and notionally, jointly and severally liable for the crimes that Patton West committed while she was on the board of the company, which was the front company for money laundering the proceeds of crime. So no, another gigantic lie. Coffin never broke contact with her in 2000 and 2003. I have a theory as to why Corinne Coffin, in spite of obviously knowing that Patton West is not a guru, but is a career criminal, my theory is that she's brainwashed and conditioned, like Williams was, like Dr. Cole was, and like many of the other zealots in her cult who think she's the greatest thing since sliced bread. An example of this is on the screen now, a letter sent to Corinne Coffin in 2003, already making Patton West into a liar, because she said the last time she had contact was around 2002. The letter I've entitled Gold. Count how many times Patton West uses the word gold in the letter she sent to Coffin. Coffin ends up giving Patton West nearly $750,000 after she constructively dismissed me and defrauded me out of paying shares. Maybe Miss Coffin had no choice but to give the money to Patton West. Ditto Williams. Are you in touch with Mr. Williams? I never talk to him, but he occasionally provides you funds, regularly provides me funds. Has he ever provided you a substantial amount, say $100,000? Not to my knowledge. Up on the screen now, a letter to me, an email to me from Rebecca West, Patton West's office manager in March 2007. And in that letter, I believe, second paragraph, the blue highlighted, shows that Julio Williams had given $100,000 to Patton West in 2007, I guess. Yes, a closer inspection of that email shows that that $100K was given last week. Now, given that Rebecca's email to me was sent in March, that's March 2007. In 2009, Patton West is asked if Williams has given her $100,000. No, not to my knowledge. You know when she's lying. Her lips are moving. Another huge lie. Here we have information, an email from Rebecca West, Patton West office manager in 2007, saying that Patton West received $100,000 from Dr. Williams. Again, lies after lies after lies. Bottom right, little page 41, and Mr. Reynolds would have knowledge about that if it occurred. He would. Have you ever received an inheritance? No, well, that's not true. When my father died, I received $10,000. And when was that? 3 years ago, this coming January. Did you receive any property? No. Was there a will? I never saw it. About the will, if there was, I never saw it. My stepmother wasn't particularly gracious. On the screen now, an email from her stepmother. Basically, Patton West borrowed $30,000 from her father, and basically Patton West borrowed $30,000 from her father and his wife. That would be Patton West's stepmother. She refused to repay that money, and that's why the relationship broke down. Again, another massive lie from Patton West, blaming the victim of fraud. Big page 12, little page top left, page 42. Are you a director of any corporation? She says no, which is probably a lie. Then the lawyer starts to get into asking about the individual corporation she had set up. The Big Fork Eagle has much to say about that, and I'll put that up on the screen now. Little page 44, top right. How about Soraya Sanctuary Spa? Never was launched, never was capitalized. Another idea of Patricia Cole's. Again, nobody has ideas that are adopted. Patton West decides it all.
You don't allow anyone to go off and do anything on their own. That you are the ultimate control freak.
Absolute control freak, John.
Yeah.
And I continue my affairs exactly along those lines. That all you want is your money.
I want to be paid for the time that I work. That's it. That's the end.
You just want to be paid.
That's it. That's it.
Even though there was no agreement, nothing in writing, nothing.
Oh, there were agreements, Deborah, between you and I, but they turned out not to be worth anything.
That's right. They turned out not to be worth anything at all.
Mm.
On the screen now, a list of the corporations I set up, and some of them are being used after I was dismissed. As for Cole, she agreed to travel with Patton West from Victor, Montana to Shambhala, Lakeside, Montana, 100 miles north, and in so doing committed 66% of her net worth to Patton West's lifestyle costs. And along the way of stripping Cole from her entire net worth, Patton West used her as a professional witness against her daughter-in-law, Kendall Hayward, in the child custody case. And then when Patton West has basically extracted all of Cole's wealth and usefulness, she disposes of Cole like a used Kleenex, which is what she tried to do with me, which is what she's done with, God, I don't know, scores of other victims.
Because I've watched you treat other people, sometimes in a very, very bad way. You dispose of them like Kleenex.
That's right.
You treat them terribly.
I've disposed of a lot of people of late. It's true.
Big page 12, top right, page 44. So it was never capitalized. After dealing with Mr. Watson's shenanigans, antics, pretty much just bailed on everything. Bottom right, page 45. Again, she doesn't know what day of the week it is. You have to ask Mr. Reynolds. Again, more lies and bullshit about, oh no, nothing really happened with it. Well, it may have been under $1,000. Lawyer says, and it was probably years ago. True, probably years ago. Bottom of that little page, 45, the lawyer asked about Global Guardianship Initiative. Patton West said, oh, she was an advisor. Patton West isn't an advisor of anything. You've heard her when there's nobody looking, or she thinks there's nobody looking. Yes, I dispose of people like Kleenex. Yes, I'm a control freak. Yes, I continue to run my business the way I want to. Then in front of a lawyer, you get all this crap. And last sentence on little page 45, that was another one that Pat Cole managed to completely flush down the toilet.
You don't allow anyone to go off and do anything on their own. that you are
Right.
the ultimate
I am an
control freak.
absolute control freak, John.
Yeah.
And I continue my affairs exactly along those lines.